Let's talk about running back tiers for 2023. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Heath Cummings. And before we start, want to make sure you guys know about the Fantasy Football Today Draft-a-thon. We've got a ton of great opportunities available for you to bid on, including private Zoom calls with Heath and I. Go to tinyurl.com/FFT donate to go to the eBay page. And also make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Football Today Dynasty podcast. He's hosting that one. It'll be up every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Dr. Graham Barfield from Fantasy Points Today.
There you go. Go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and search for the Fantasy Football Today Dynasty podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Leave a nice little comment for Heath. It'll make him feel better as well. And now we're going to talk about RB tiers. And Heath, I noticed something interesting in your running back rankings today. You've got Christian McCaffrey number 1. Well, everybody does. You've got Josh Jacobs number 2. Does that mean, we'll start with this question, does that mean Christian McCaffrey is in a tier of his own at the running back position in your eyes?
It does not. If I was going strictly based on projections, Eckler would be at the top.
Okay.
And Jacobs is younger with less injury history and less, I think, sharing concerns. There's some weird stuff in the time that Christian McCaffrey was with San Francisco last year and Elijah Mitchell was healthy. And so I would actually, my first tier would be McCaffrey in full PPR, McCaffrey, Jacobs, and Eckler.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I've got McCaffrey and Eckler alone at the top of in the top tier. And then I've got Josh Jacobs in the next tier with Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Bijan Robinson. Does that jibe with what you've got?
Yes, I would throw Tony Pollard in that tier for now as well. I'm still kind of expecting they're going to add someone else, but at this point, I can't discount Pollard that much for a hypothetical when this close to camp.
Yeah, the thing that's tough with Pollard, and this was a stat I dropped on the full episode of Fantasy Football Today as well. It's not my stat. I can't remember who I originally saw it from. Sorry. But last year, there were 13 running backs who had at least 10 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott on the Dallas Cowboys had the shortest average length for his 10 touchdowns. Actually, I think it was 12. Tony Pollard had the longest. Tony Pollard's average touchdown last year was 25 yards, which is pretty incredible. And so that's just to say that if he's going to get some of that goal line work, that could lead to a huge, huge season for Tony Pollard. But I agree. I think it's likely they're going to add someone. He's my RB7 right now, but same range for me as I've got Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Ramondre Stevenson in my next tier. And I kind of want to put Joe Mixon in with them. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I have Chubb, Henry, and Mixon in the next tier. So I think we're kind of on the same path. I think these are backs who deserve to be there based on their workhorse status, but they also don't deserve to be in tier 1 or tier 2 because they are old or getting old.
Yeah, in Mixon's case, I think it's unlikely anyone has the kind of glow up that Josh Jacobs did last year from the draft to the final rankings where he was, a 5th round pick and ended up being, I think, the RB3 in PPR scoring. But Joe Mixon, depending on where his price falls, obviously, last weekend he agreed to a restructuring of his contract that lowers his salary and makes it, he's going to be on the team this year. That was the uncertainty as of, last Friday. Now we know he's going to be on the Bengals this year, and that makes me feel pretty confident that he's going to be an RB1. And he's kind of at the bottom of the RB1 tier for me. He's RB11 for me, so technically, Travis Etienne is my RB12, so he's also an RB1. But I feel really confident in Joe Mixon and above as my RB1. If I'm going into the draft, if I'm going into the season with my next tier, which is Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones, Breece Hall, Miles Sanders, or Najee Harris, if those are my RB1s, I'm not feeling great about it.
Yeah, and I think I am a step behind you on Stevenson. I would put him in that group of if he's my RB1, I don't feel great about it. And I'm a step behind you on Harris. My next tier would be Miles Sanders, Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, and Aaron Jones. And there's something that both Harris and Stevenson share, and it's terrible yards per target numbers. They're really both been, now Harris for 2 years, Stevenson last year, propped up by a huge volume in the passing game. And they didn't really do a whole lot with that huge volume. So I am less confident they'll hold on to it, especially now. I guess we have to care that Dalvin Cook's betting odds say that the Patriots are the most likely team for him to land with, which would be a headache for everybody who's been drafting Ramondre Stevenson. It'd be great for me because I don't have any Ramondre Stevenson. Much better than going to the Jets or something. But yeah, I think that group, describing it that way, if they're my RB2, I feel great about them. If they're my RB1,
your wide receivers, quarterback, or tight end should be really, really good if those guys are your RB1. That's going to do it for FFT and 5. Make sure you listen to the full episode of Fantasy Football Today. Jamie Eisenberg, Adam Azer, and I went through about the top 40 running back tiers, or top 40 running backs in the tiers. So you can check out that for a full breakdown, and we'll see you tomorrow for wide receiver tiers.